歡迎大家嚟到星期六主場。呢個喺 Action Life 同埋 Action World 兩個頻道今日咧係一同聯播嘅。咁如果大家聽到喺世界唔同嘅地方咧，可以打一啲 comment 俾我哋，等我哋知道咧係喺邊度你哋係聽緊個節目啦。咁 so happen 而家咧，我哋4位咧都係喺唔同嘅地方。美國西岸、加拿大西岸、美國東岸，咁就I guess I'll do some simultaneous translation, but I'm also having a very restricted time frame. And thank you for appearing and listening to the so-called Kingdom Saturdays channel. We have Mark Clifford, former editor-in-chief at SCMP, also director at Next Digital. Reverend Yu, who is from Vancouver, who has lived in Vancouver for more than 34 years, and Mr. Cheng Chung, a veteran journalist. I guess the majority of the message will be delivered in Cantonese, with Mark speaking more in Cantonese this time. Of course, it's a joke. Okay, maybe we all warm up a little bit, say something for 30-40 seconds before I do my 7-minute thing. Start with Reverend Yu. How about that?
係，大家好，好高興咧喺度同大家見面。咁我知道今日個主題係講關於苦難。其實喺基督教嘅信仰裏邊，苦難係一個好重要嘅主題。我諗即係好多嘅信仰都係去講到點樣嘅去處理生命裏邊嘅苦難，但係基督教嘅信仰特別嘅地方係我哋嘅神咧係一個同我哋一齊進入苦難嘅神嚟嘅。咁好希望即係有機會同大家多啲分享。
Yeah, and Mark, today's theme is on suffering. Maybe you can add some color. 30 to 45 seconds.
大家好，你好。So thank you very much, Edward, Reverend Yu. Thank you. Yeah, it's a time where we don't know where the bottom is. We just keep falling, and I think I'm honored and pleased, and I'm hoping to be inspired to be with all of you today. It's a difficult time, and we are suffering, but there's hope and there's belief, and we will continue on. So look forward to the discussion.
OK， 程生啦，嗱，即係未入正題之前30至45秒啦，想聽下你會有啲人有咩講。
Well, I think belief in Christ is a very important way to solve your sufferings. Not both at the personal level and at the community level.
好，咁或者我開始先啦，就我用7分鐘，我計時，我去到10分鐘我就完啦，跟住俾程翔先生。喺離開香港之前咧，即係講緊幾個禮拜之前，咁我見到喺西九龍法院裏邊有好多即係案件啦，咁其中當然就係講緊張劍虹壹傳媒嘅 CEO 羅偉光，咁當時最後咧就係佢哋唔可以得到保釋。咁張劍虹咧，我之前都係唔熟嘅，咁我哋去旁聽黎智英嘅案件嘅時候，佢喺我前邊一路寒暄，咁一路見到即係當 Apple Daily 仲未成個公司 dismantle 之前，我見到即係有好多人會係仲有個憧憬，個傳媒仲可以存在。咁喺幾個禮拜之後，依家800幾900個員工咧係失業啦。咁但係更加shocking 嘅嘢咧，就係見到 Teachers Union 講緊教協、教育局咧講緊唔夠幾個鐘頭之前有個 news 出咗嚟，就係講佢哋嘅 嗰啲 so-called 叫 CPT 啦，啲 continuing education 嘅 course 啊，每個先生都要積㗎啦，即係好似金融界都係唔被承認。咁當然咧，亦都有兩份官媒左報啦，就喺度批評其中一份好似係《人民日報》咁講啲類似係佢唔係注重教育嘅工作。咁我諗緊即係除咗即係金融界，我哋咧就係上市公司已經係咧要有黨委書記，講緊啲如果你係國企咧，唔使講喺香港，咁金融界裏邊70%依家都講緊同中資背景有關嘅啦，香港。你講緊每一個嘅界別，依家喺香港完全就係 dismantle 當中。咁我諗呢一個嘅extreme makeover， 即係我自己都好難去接受到。咁我覺得咧，即係呢樣嘢係即係我50幾年人生裏邊咧，相信當時講緊鄧小平嘅一國兩制而翻嚟香港到依家，完全係唔同咗，有好多人離開。我喺度諗緊點樣將苦難呢樣嘢咧去 apply to 今日咧我哋個主軸嗰度。我相信咧未來嗰7至10年咧會有可能接近200-300萬人咧離開，即係話仲有450萬嘅人咧會留翻喺香港嗰度。咁世界嘅香港就係會喺世界唔同嘅地方延續。香港本身嗰400幾萬原居民咧，所謂會點咧？會係被點講咧？會唔會好似即係變咗好似西藏一樣？呢個係我諗嘅嘢，就係佢嘅文化、佢嘅教育、佢嘅一切咧，完全係個冇咗。獅子山下精神冇咗，我哋舊時 believe in 嘅嘢係冇咗。咁呢個係我好驚嘅嘢。咁但係無論點都好啦，即係依家我知道係香港好似 go through 緊一個文革咁樣嘅事情。喺尋日喺溫哥華 Vancouver Art Gallery 出邊，我都即係好鼓舞一樣嘢，就係一個好簡短幾日之前嘅 announcement， 都有相對嘅香港人出咗嚟，有個交流會啦。咁我哋講翻香港人嘅故事。咁原來溫哥華嘅香港人咧都係好關注翻，即係究竟雖然佢哋可能移民咗好耐，但係當中佢仲未係忘記香港嘅所有發生嘅一切。唐英傑先生判咗9年，因為一支光時期同埋一架電單車，我會覺得係一個危險駕駛，俾到盡你係判佢9個月，唔係9年。咁呢啲即係我見到嗰個苦難咧係嚟緊，因為如果唐英傑先生係 set 咗個 precedent， 呢個係叫做國安法嘅最低量刑起點。我唔知道嚟緊嘅將會係接受國安法嘅一啲我哋熟悉嘅朋友會係有啲乜嘢嘅刑期。我覺得係一個不公義嘅審判，但係點都好，我覺得咧上帝會作最後審判。I was just reiterating what happened over the last few months in Hong Kong with 4 senior staff from Apple Daily now under detainment under the NSL. And then Tong Yin Kit's case is more than surreal, having a 9-year sentence. And also the dismantling of the teachers' union. All their CPT courses would not be recognized. So this dismantling of Hong Kong, I guess it makes me feel sad. But no matter what, I just want to share with our audience a Bible verse. I think that makes it's more than surreal in this uncertain time, and I guess it's important to bring hope no matter what, which is from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. I guess my 10 minutes is almost up, and I will pass the time to Mr. Ching Chung, who spent 1,000 days in a Chinese prison. And for those who don't know, Mr. Ching Cheng, he used to work in a pro-Beijing publication. 大公定係文匯，我唔記得啦。咁啊，程生，不如咧，我交個時間俾你。
Okay, thank you, Ed. I think in the past 100 years, we saw massive exodus of people from China. A friend of mine asked me a question, why we Chinese has to escape communism 3 times in 100 years. First time is 1949, when lots of people fled their homeland to come to Hong Kong. The second time, that was what his grandfather did. And the second time was 1997, when his father took the whole family away from Hong Kong, also fleeing communism. Now, it was his turn to take his family away from Hong Kong. So he asked me this question, why we Chinese has to flee communism 3 times in 100 years. Now that, to me, is a very soul-searching question. What's wrong with our country? What's wrong with our people? Now, Hong Kong has, since Hong Kong entered this historical stage 150 years ago, Hong Kong has been a place accepting political refugees from China, starting very early from the Taiping Rebellion in 80 something. And then you have the Dr. Sun Yat-sen's revolution. We also saw lots of dissidents from China fleeing, seeking political refuge in Hong Kong. And not to mention the Tiananmen crisis, where Hong Kong played host to a number of political dissidents from China. So for the last 150 years, Hong Kong has been the emergency exit, so to speak, for political dissidents from China. However, this time around, Hong Kong become the origin of some political prisoners and the origin of political refugees exiting the place. So this is a very, to me, this is a very important historical change, signifying the decline of Hong Kong. And I think I'm being a Hong Kongese, brought up and educated in Hong Kong. This is very sorrowful to me to see that. And our film today is Suffering. We saw suffering at individual levels, like the Jimmy and all those advocates of democracy. However, we also see suffering at the community level. We witness Hong Kong going down the drain, and it's very, very sad to see that. Now, while encountering suffering, I think my own experience is that we have to resort to God. We have to resort to faith. Now, I'm not used to be a faith believer. In my childhood days, although I was educated in St. Paul's College, which is a Christian school, I defy religion because I believe in historical materialism, which defy all sorts of religion. But after my own incarceration in the Chinese jail, I found that religion is the salvation. Now, I don't want to spend too much time recalling my own encounter with Christ, which is in fact, personally, I consider it to be a miracle. Because I defiled the Bible, and yet in the prison, when my hands were locked, I received a Bible from the prison head, which I think is a very, I would say, a very dramatic moment. You see, I grew up in a Christian school, but I defied Bible, I defied Jesus Christ, and yet when I was in custody, I resort to Bible. Now, this is a very, to me, it is a very strange encounter, but I won't recall this encounter here because it takes a lot of time. I just want to say that once I start to read the Bible, something strange comes in. First of all, I weep when I read when I read this phrase, Psalm 23, chapter 23, 4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your Lord and your staff, they comfort me. Now, I have not wept any time before I read this. However, when I encounter this verse, I don't know why I burst into tears. And why? Because I have just gone through the so-called shadow of death. When I was kept in solitary confinement for more than 100 days, I was totally distressed. I want to commit suicide. I want to kill myself. I don't want to suffer anymore. So that's why when I encounter this phrase in the Bible, it seems to be depicting my situation. So because of this, I suddenly burst into tears. And it is for this reason that I become, well, I don't know why, whether this is so-called the Holy Spirit coming to salvage me. And then I began to pray. I've never prayed before. And I asked God to give me the power, the courage to endure this suffering. And like the Bible said, when you pray, you get it. And I keep on praying, and I felt that I was much empowered by God. And because prison life is a very terrible one. You encounter all sorts of dehumanizing regulations or procedures. The Chinese prison is purposely devised all sorts of regulations that is very dehumanizing, I would say. For example, they request every inmate to bow down to the officers whenever you encounter one. And whenever you want to speak to the officers, you have to squat down. All these gestures is meant to dehumanize you. And therefore, life in a prison, in a Chinese prison, is very, very unpleasant, very dehumanizing. Although I don't suffer from any physical abuse of any sort, but the mental torture is strong enough to defeat a person. But after all these prayers, with the empowerment of the prayer, I began to recover confidence and to restore my dignity and my self-respect. So much so that I learned to face my pain with a smile, to face coldness with a courtesy, to face persecution with forgiveness, to face arrogance with humility, to face indifference with care, and to face trembling with encouragement. Now, life in the Chinese prison is full of pain, full of coldness, full of sense of persecution, full of arrogance. Each of these, I meant to recover. I meant to conquer all these sufferings simply with a dedicated prayer every morning. So my experience is that when I resort to faith, when I seek Jesus, I got empowerment, and with this empowerment, I can weather the severity of this prison life. So I would like to, if possible, I would like to encourage my friends in the prison to try to maintain a joyous heart. Now, I know it's very difficult to feel joyous in the prison, but I must say that unless you preserve a joyful heart, it is extremely difficult to weather the prison life. How to preserve a joyous heart? The Bible has a lot of teachings telling people how to preserve a joyful heart. Without this joyful heart, you won't be able to withstand the hardship you encounter in the prison. So a joyful heart is very important. And I hope my friends in the prisons will be able to maintain such a joyful heart. And I don't want to repeat all the verses from the Bible that spell the importance of being joyful in times of suffering. So this is my encounter with God in the prison at the personal level. And then at the community level, I think faith in God is also an important element for us to encounter the hardship we have now. Remember the downfall of the Berlin Wall. At the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, I went to the former Soviet countries to see what happened 20 years after the fall of the wall. And when I was in Berlin, I want to find out the origin that led to the fall of the wall. And yet they point me to Leipzig, a city to the south of Berlin. You know, in Christian history, Leipzig is a very important place because it is where Martin Luther made his major proclamations, which led eventually to the Protestant belief. In Leipzig, it was the Monday sermon that eventually led to the downfall of the Berlin Wall. Now, again, time constraint, I don't think I can have time to explain why a Monday sermon in Leipzig would have produced such a tremendous force that led eventually to the fall of the Berlin Wall. But the the Council of World Churches later said that if there is anything worried the word miracle, it was the downfall of the Berlin Wall. It was the unification of Germany that manifests how prayer would empower people to withstand the hardship and eventually conquer the enemy. Now, in fact, when I went to Leipzig, I learned that the story all evolved around a pastor called Pastor Farrell and his church, because at that time in East Germany, no public gatherings was allowed except regular sermon in the church. And the sermon is the only time when people can gather and discuss public issues. And at the end of towards the end of the communist rule, the problem has in East Germany has mushroomed, and people want more and more encouragement from the church, and therefore Pastor Farrell from the church led this Monday sermon, because the Sunday sermon is not enough to solve people's problem, and then he started a Monday sermon, and it was this Monday sermon that eventually snowballed. And I try to ask him, what is the most important biblical phrases that encourage people? He pointed to the Sermon on the Mount, which carried in Matthew chapter 5. And I think we Christians are very familiar with this. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. So the Sermon on the Mount became a very powerful ideological weapon against fear, and it was because of this the people's fearlessness to confront the authority that eventually the East German authority dare not suppress it. And because of this gathering, the success in Leipzig's gathering, the effect snowballed in the whole of East Germany, and which empowered people so much that they forced the authority to take down the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall is not physically crushed. The downfall of the Berlin Wall is a metamorphical usage. It is the people who force the authority to allow people to leave the country, which signifies symbolically the fall of the Berlin Wall. And after the Berlin Wall fails, people post big posters in the street. Thank you, Leipzig. you lead to the fall of the Berlin Wall. And the Council of World Churches said that if there's anything that merit the word miracle, it is the downfall of the Berlin Wall. So I think at the community level, we should also build up our faith in God, and with the 8 fortitudes mentioned in Matthew, this may be the empowerment that we may get from God. So now that at the community level, Hong Kong is also suffering. Every day we read news that totally that is very unpleasant. That is totally strange to a community that we love and used to stay peacefully there. And all such events defy logic. And it's very sad to Hong Kong going down the drain this way. And I think at this moment of hardship, the religious leaders in Hong Kong should try to instill faith in people, and if we can come together around God, so maybe we can get empowerment from God to weather these adversities. Thank you.
咁最後咧，想問下程生，點解揀咗 Amos 5章24節 ？But let justice roll on like a river, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream。有冇特別意思？
因為我覺得聖經好多時講公義。但係而家我哋係冇咗公義，我哋香港而家好缺乏公義。國安法嚟咗之後呢，就完全唔好講係公義，完全連基本嘅道理都唔講。咁呢個呢，即係喺咁嘅場合底下呢，喺咁嘅時代底下呢，我覺得每一個基督徒或者唔好講基督徒，每一個人都要去伸張公義。如果唔係嘅時候呢，即係呢個香港咁嘅墮落呢，係無可挽救。你譬如話，當我睇到蘋果係活生生地去碾死佢嘅，喺蘋果身上，我哋睇到香港本來係一個好自由、好活潑嘅社會，亦都係俾佢活生生地碾死。呢個呢，呢啲咁嘅香港呢咁嘅 sufferings 呢，我覺得係要每一個人呢係敢於去伸張呢個公義，先至嚟能夠係抗衡到呢種暴力、呢種暴政。
OK， 唔該晒程生。I guess it's more than surreal to see what has been going on in Hong Kong, and Mark, I always love the interactive dialogue that you moderate with Jimmy, and we all pray for Jimmy and all those that we love, and their family as well. I guess today's topic is on suffering, and you being so close to the Apple Daily family and the journalists who are now in prison. I'm sure you know of Claudia Mo and so many others. What do you make of today's topic, even you are not a church goer, but you have so much energy and heart for Hong Kong. Maybe I pass the time to you.
Well, thank you, Edward and Ching Chong. So interesting and inspiring to hear your story and your thoughts. Look, we don't have too much time, and we want to hear Reverend Yu. So let me just be very, very brief. Yeah, there's suffering, but whatever belief one has, I think there's hope. And I think there's hope because of Ching Chong, you spoke about the troubles and the suffering of the country of China, but it's the government and it's the leaders, and right now the Communist Party that's causing the suffering. It's not the people. I mean, the people of Hong Kong, we've seen it in Taiwan. We see Chinese people in Singapore and Vancouver and Toronto. They're not the problem. They're the ones who are suffering. And so I think your discussion about the Berlin Wall, and I'm old enough to remember when the Berlin Wall went up, and I never thought I'd see it go down in my life, and it's been down for more than 30 years now, and it really was something like a miracle. We can't understand how it happened, but it happened, and we have to remember, I think, also what you said about joyousness, and with that, this sense of a light heart, even a spirit of laughter. I mean, we're up against a government that is running the largest country in the world, and yet they're concerned because people are booing their national anthem or making fun of their flag or holding up a blank piece of paper. I mean, I think that they're scared. I think that they're suffering in their own strange way. So look, we haven't hit the bottom. Edward, I appreciate so much the thoughts you have for Jimmy Lai, for his family, for the many journalists, including quite a few from Apple. There are more than 4, in fact, now who are in prison. Claudia Mo, all these people who are in prison for, as Ching Chong said, just unimaginable kinds of things, just holding up a sign or singing a song, and now that's criminal. And I don't think that's what Hong Kong is. I don't think that's what the Hong Kong people have built in their city, and I don't think this will endure forever. So whatever your beliefs, I think we just have to have hope, and we have to have a sense of community and know that we're not alone. I know that one of the things that Jimmy was most concerned about is that people would forget Hong Kong. And I think it's up to all of us to make sure that Hong Kong isn't forgotten. The people that are in prison in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong as a city, and the spirit that I think endures. It's not something that the communists can just wipe out in a few days or even a few years. And again, they're going to keep making it more difficult. They keep talking about perfecting the national security law, about getting rid of loopholes. I mean, we all know how this government works, but I think that we're stronger than that. And so thank you, Edward. Thank you, Ching Chong. And thank you, Reverend Yu, who I want to turn it over to now.
Thank you. 余木，最後個波交俾你。
OK， 咁我講少少啦，都想留翻啲時間同大家一齊禱告。我最近都喺度預備緊呢一個啟示錄嘅講道信息啊。其實即係好多人以為啟示錄係淨係講世界末日，但係其實係一卷好豐富嘅書嚟。啟示錄裏邊咧講到即係嗰個正義同埋美善嘅神，佢點樣去審判邪惡。講到美善同埋邪惡之間嘅爭戰，咁當然啦，啟示錄嗰個嘅信息係最終呢一個嘅美善嘅神、正義嘅神係會得勝嘅，而嗰個嘅公義係會得到彰顯。咁咧，但係嗰個過程裏邊咧有一件好重要嘅事，我哋要喺啟示錄裏邊睇到嘅，就係咧神嘅得勝咧並唔係靠着咧呢一個武力去得勝，而係靠着咧佢願意去承受佢嘅子民嘅苦難，去進入苦難，去同佢哋一齊喺苦難當中，去承載呢一個苦難咧，嚟到去得勝。我哋耶穌基督嘅得勝咧，唔單止係佢喺呢一個空墳墓裏邊行出嚟嘅時候，而係咧更加重要係佢喺十字架上邊去受死嘅時候，佢可以從十字架上邊行翻落嚟嘅，其實。 但係佢停留咗喺十字架上邊去接受呢一個苦難。而呢一個咧係我哋嘅神得勝嘅地方。咁呢一個我諗對我哋好多依家喺香港經歷緊苦難嘅人咧，應該係一個充滿安慰嘅訊息嚟。我哋今日喺苦難裏邊嘅生活，唔一定咧係因為我哋不斷咁樣輸緊，結果會最終導致我哋更大嘅衰亡。我哋今日喺苦難當中生活，其實可以係一個通往勝利嘅途徑嚟嘅。咁呢一個係我諗喺苦難當中嘅人，我哋要好記得嘅嗰個訊息咯。咁係咯，好簡短嘅分享。我好想咧同大家咧一齊嘅去禱告。所以如果你係無論你係教徒好或者唔係都好，我都好想邀請大家咧，我哋一齊去祈禱，讓我哋一齊祈禱。親愛天父，我哋咧縱然係喺各樣嘅困難當中，我哋咧仍然要向你獻上感謝。天父係因為喺死蔭嘅幽谷當中，你咧並冇離棄我哋，而係咧你與我哋一同嘅同行，喺我哋嘅身邊咧，讓我哋去得到支持，同埋咧得到保護。天父啊，我為到所有咧依家喺香港或者咧喺世界唔同地方嘅香港人喺苦難當中嘅經歷咧，嚟到向你禱告。天父啊，求你咧俾我哋喺最黑暗嘅時候，我哋咧仍然可以揾到盼望。天父啊，就係咧你自己所賜下嘅嗰個你自己嘅光輝，縱使咧喺黑暗當中，可能咧好似只係一粒星，喺好遙遠嘅天空，孤獨咁樣閃耀。但係天父啊，就靠着嗰一丁點嘅光亮，天父讓我哋咧能夠可以喺黑暗當中咧，我哋繼續嘅堅持落去。因為我哋都知道，當黑暗去到最深嘅時候咧，亦都係黎明咧即將來到嘅時候。所以天父啊，俾我哋咧心裏邊咧常常咧都係帶着盼望，縱使我哋係面對前所未有嘅黑暗，天父啊，但係俾我哋嘅心咧仍然係被你自己嘅光明所充滿。天父啊，讓我哋咧喺呢個黑暗當中，我哋願意咧與其他同樣身處苦難當中嘅人咧去同行。天父啊，俾我哋彼此嘅扶持，就好似咧你喺我哋嘅身邊扶持我哋一樣。天父啊，帶領我哋能夠堅忍嘅走落去，直到咧你自己嘅公義好似大水降臨一樣嘅嗰一天。天父啊，求你幫助我哋，憐憫我哋，扶持我哋。天父，我哋多謝你。我哋咁樣禱告咧，係奉耶穌基督得勝嘅名字祈求，阿門。
Amen. Well, I guess it's really good. We have this kingdom message every Saturday night, 10 p.m. Hong Kong time. I hope most people will be inspired by the message, whether you are a believer or not, because definitely I see more Hong Kongers will be leaving Hong Kong. And for those who stay in Hong Kong, they need the courage and the empowerment from within and also from God the Almighty. 好多謝大家。咁last words, I guess 我哋每人最後分享。I guess maybe Mark, well, everyone will say the last 40 seconds, whatever message you want to speak out to the audience. I talk a lot about Apple Daily because it's just more than surreal.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for remembering Apple and for remembering Jimmy and the other people who are in jail. And let's not forget, we have to keep believing, keep hoping. We know that there will be better times ahead. And as a community, we just have to stick together with each other and find the hope and the love that we need to survive another day, another year, another decade, another century. So thank you, Edward. Thank you, Ching Chung. Thank you, Reverend Yu.
程生。 Oops, sorry 啊，頭先刪咗，唔好意思個咪。
我希望大家喺呢個困難嘅時刻，唔好懼怕。呢個政權係有好多佢自己嘅內在嘅弱點。如果佢唔係有好多內在嘅弱點嘅時候，佢唔需要強迫人去愛佢，係嘛？如果佢係一個好似佢當初呢個開始崛起嘅時候，佢係一個有理想嘅集團嘅時候咧，自然會有好多人去支持佢。但係你今日佢係內心係虛怯到連一支光時嘅旗佢都唔可以接受，咁嘅時候咧，佢嘅虛弱係難以想像嘅。喺咁嘅情況底下咧，我哋冇必要去懼怕佢，相反係佢懼怕我哋。當然佢今日有好多呢個屬於政權嘅暴力可以嚟鎮壓我哋，但係咧最終都係勝利都係屬於我哋嘅嚇。
好啊，咁啊，余木，不如你 wrap up 啦。
好，我好同意頭先阿程先生所講，啟示錄裏邊有一個好重要嘅信息咧，就係今日我哋見到邪惡嘅猖狂，唔係因為邪惡得勢，而係因為咧佢深深嘅知道自己嘅敗亡已經注定，所以晒冷。咁所以我哋唔需要害怕，因為公義始終會有一日咧係降臨。
好，咁就多謝晒大家，亦都希望大家可以支持我哋個頻道啦。喺個 Patreon 嗰度，咁你見到個 title 嗰度，你會見到啲詳情噶啦。咁星期六主場係唯一一個 Action Life 同埋 Action World 係特定喺星期六10點鐘香港時間做嘅節目，其他咧都係好突發性嘅。咁希望大家繼續支持。Thank you so much, Mark, Reverend Yu, and Ching Cheng. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.